Welcome to Midnight Affairs Tales, where secrets don't sleep. Tell us where you're watching from, then buckle up. And most important, never forget to subscribe to our channel. Starts now. Chapter 1. It was raining like the sky itself was grieving. The tarmac at Dover Air Force Base glistened under floodlights, each drop of rain flickering like static. AC-17 sat silent at the far end, its ramp lowered, the shadows inside swallowing the coffin draped in stars and stripes. Emma Keller stood in the line of next of kin. 32. Olive coat soaked to her knees. Blonde hair pinned in a loose knot, frizzing at the edges. Her arms hugged her body, but nothing could stop the trembling. Not from the cold, from the finality. Two white-gloved soldiers moved with mechanical grace. One held the flag. The other stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said softly, eyes cast down, offering the folded triangle like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Emma didn't speak. Her jaw clenched, her lips trembling just enough to betray her. Her son Luke, 3 years old, stood beside her, holding a small stuffed bear in digital camo. He looked around, confused, too young to understand what this meant, but old enough to sense the sorrow vibrating through his mother's bones. Behind her, in crisp dress blues, stood Staff Sergeant Cole Ramsey, tall, built like a linebacker, his face carved from grief and steel. He didn't cry, didn't twitch, just stood behind Emma like a statue of loyalty. Jace Keller, Captain, Army Ranger, 10 years in, 3 tours, was dead. Killed in action. Convoy hit by an IED just west of Helmand Province. Or so they were told. 4,000 miles away. Smoke still curled off the crater. A shepherd boy stared, barefoot in the dust, holding a single goat by a frayed rope. He crept toward the wreckage. U.S. military gear was strewn across the rocks, twisted metal, a bloodied helmet, a half-melted patch of the American flag. Then a cough. A wet, rattling cough from under the debris. The boy ran. Seconds later, a blackened hand clawed through the dirt. Fingers trembling. Blood caked under the nails. The forearm was burned and raw, skin like paper, veins bulging. A man dragged himself out, gasping, covered in ash and sweat, face barely recognizable beneath the grime and burns. Jace Keller. Alive. One leg was crushed. Ribs broken. Ears ringing so loud he couldn't hear his own scream. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know how long he'd been under. But he knew one thing. He wasn't supposed to be breathing. 3 days passed in blur and pain. The locals dragged him to a rudimentary aid station near Kandahar. No U.S. tags, no working ID, no face left that matched the photo in the Army's database. To them, he was just another John Doe. A dying ghost in a war zone too forgotten to ask questions. By the time he regained enough strength to speak, they'd already closed his file. Killed in action. Body unrecoverable. Flag delivered. He whispered one word, over and over through cracked lips. Emma. Back in Virginia, the wake was held in Emma's backyard, a wide, open lawn wrapped in white lights and plastic chairs. The kind of place meant for summer barbecues, not eulogies. Cole stayed late. He helped stack chairs, took out the trash, held Luke while Emma signed condolence cards she didn't remember writing. His sleeves were rolled up. His shirt hugged his frame a little too well. His cologne lingered. "Need anything?" he asked, his voice warm. Familiar. Emma didn't answer right away. Her eyes were red, her throat raw from repeating, "I'm okay," too many times. Finally, she whispered, "I just want him back." Cole looked down and said nothing. 3 months later, Jay stared through the window of a small recovery clinic outside Istanbul. His leg was cast in steel and screws. His beard was thick. His eyes, those sharp army eyes, had dulled from morphine and rage. He watched news on a static-filled television. A memorial special. Local hero Captain Jace Keller, honored today in Arlington. Photos flickered on-screen. Him in uniform. Him and Emma on their wedding day. Luke in his arms as a newborn. And then, Cole. At the ceremony. Front row. Arm around Emma. Kissing her forehead. Jace's breath caught. The room felt colder. His heartbeat slowed, then surged. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing, jaw clenched so tight it made his temples throb. His hands gripped the arms of the wheelchair until his knuckles turned white. Something was wrong. Something was so goddamn wrong. That night, Jace didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling until sunrise, 1,000 questions screaming inside him. Why didn't they look for me? Why was Cole there, next to her, in my place? Why does my son call him daddy in that photo? Pain bloomed in his leg, but it was nothing compared to what bloomed in his chest. Not grief. Not confusion. Fire. A cold, calculated fire. Weeks later, new passport. New name. Burned face, surgical scars, voice rasped from smoke damage. Jace limped onto American soil like a man returning from hell. Not as a soldier. Not as a ghost. As something else. Something sharper. He didn't go home. He didn't call Emma. He just stood across the street. Rain falling again, mirroring the day they gave her that flag. Emma stepped onto the porch, holding Luke in one arm and Cole's hand in the other. Jace didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Just stared. His world shattered and rebuilt itself into something darker. Something patient. Because now he knew. They buried him alive. And they were going to regret it. The house hadn't changed. Same white porch swing. Same brick path winding through the trimmed lawn. Same wind chimes tapping against the rain gutter like nervous fingers. But inside, behind those walls, everything was different. Jay stood across the street, parked inside a rusted Ford rental, engine off, cap pulled low, collar high. His jaw twitched every time the front door opened. He didn't even know how long he'd been watching. Time felt broken. Then the door creaked. Emma stepped out, hair pulled into a tired bun, Luke at her side. She knelt to zip his coat, kissed his cheek, and sent him down the walk with a little green backpack bouncing behind him. Cole met him at the curb, opened the car door, and handed him a juice pouch like it was the most normal morning in the world. They looked like a family. His family. Jace gripped the steering wheel. His palms were sweaty. His nails dug into the leather. Cole kissed Emma, quick, practiced. Not passionate. Routine. The kind of kiss you give when you think no one's watching. But someone was. Jace followed them that morning. Not Luke. Not Emma. Just Cole. He tailed him quietly, 2 cars back, staying in the blind spots. No military precision now, just instinct and rage. He needed to know where the bastard worked, who he met, how he lived with what he'd done. Cole pulled into a government building near Quantico. Department of Veterans Affairs. Jace parked down the street and waited. For 3 hours, he watched. Nothing suspicious. Just suits, coffee runs, business as usual. But Jace's gut said different. Cole wasn't just living his life, he was living Jace's. And no one seemed to question it. Back home. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, the flag still on the dresser, untouched. She hadn't put it away. Couldn't. It felt wrong. But some part of her hated it being there too, staring at her like a lie wrapped in red, white, and blue. Cole walked in, towel around his neck, rubbing water from his hair. "You okay?" he asked, gentle voice, measured steps. She didn't answer right away, just stared at the folded triangle. Finally, she murmured, "You think he felt anything?" When it happened, Cole froze. Just for a second, then forced a sigh. Probably not. Fast. That's what the report said. Emma looked up. "You read the report?" He nodded once. "I had to. Closure." Emma studied his face. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the comforter. She wanted to believe him. Needed to. But lately, in the quiet moments, something kept scratching at her. She'd deleted the texts. The ones she and Cole exchanged when Jace was deployed. She'd burned the letters Cole had written her while pretending to just be a friend. She erased the night she let him stay after the funeral. Told herself grief made people do strange things. But she could still hear it in her head. That one message she never replied to, but never deleted either. If he doesn't come back, does that mean we finally can be honest? Emma rose and left the room, leaving Cole standing in silence, still damp from the shower, heart beating just a little faster. Later that night, Jace broke into his own storage unit. The key still worked. No one had touched it. Inside was everything he'd owned, old uniforms, journals, photographs, a laptop, and a dented metal case. He flicked through photos first, Emma holding Luke, him in the background, blurry but smiling. A camping trip. Christmas in Korea. A blurry Polaroid of him and Cole, arms over each other's shoulders, drunk on some rooftop in Kabul. He stared at that one for a long time. You couldn't see betrayal in a photo, but you could feel it now. He booted up the laptop. The login still worked. His heart pounded as he opened old emails, documents, deployment logs. Then he froze. A life insurance policy. $500,000. Beneficiary, Emma Keller. Secondary contact, Staff Sergeant Cole Ramsey. Jace's mouth went dry. His name was gone from every record past a certain date. Deployment logs missing. Convoy route changes unsigned. Everything that would have cleared up how he ended up in that ambush was scrubbed. Deliberate. Someone had buried more than just his body. Next morning, Emma found Cole in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear. He was whispering too low to hear. When she stepped in, he jumped slightly. "Everything okay?" she asked, rubbing her temples. Cole smiled, forced and brief. "Yeah, just work stuff." But she saw something in his eyes. A flicker of that same tightness she'd seen during the funeral, during the wedding, during the nights he woke up drenched in sweat, muttering Jace's name in his sleep. She nodded slowly, walked to the sink, and watched as he erased the last call from his phone. Jace watched that night. He sat on a hill across from the house, binoculars in his lap, a notebook filled with scribbles in his hand. Timestamps, patterns, vehicle tags, faces. He wasn't just watching anymore. He was hunting, not like a man chasing revenge, but like a soldier reclaiming a war that never ended. The house lights dimmed. Cole's silhouette crossed the bedroom window. Emma's followed, and Jace whispered to himself, voice raw, "You don't get to keep what you stole." The mirror didn't recognize him. Jace stared into it anyway. The cheap motel lighting buzzed overhead, flickering yellow across the fractured reflection. His beard was shorter now, trimmed. His burns had healed into shiny pink streaks down the side of his jaw and across his shoulder. The left side of his face looked like melted wax under tension. He pressed a hand to the scar tissue. It didn't hurt. Not physically. The man in the glass looked older than 35. Eyes sunken, jaw clenched, posture rigid like he still expected a bomb to go off nearby. He ran his fingers over the stitched-up shrapnel scars on his ribs and counted them like a rosary. The hospital had patched the body, but they hadn't touched the mind. 2 months earlier, he'd been pulled from the rubble half dead, eyes caked with ash, ears ringing so loud it felt like silence. They'd stitched him up at a NATO trauma post outside of Kandahar. No ID, no tags, no dog chain, not even a name. He was John Doe, unclaimed, unburied. He spent weeks strapped to a steel frame, bones wired back into place. His right leg, shattered in 4 places, was reinforced with a titanium rod and a plastic brace. The nurses called him lucky. He never smiled when they did. When the drugs wore off, the dreams came. Dreams of dirt in his mouth, screaming, fire chewing through metal. Emma's voice, faint, distant, calling his name through smoke. And Cole's voice, clearer, not from the dream, from the memory. "Just breathe, brother. You're gonna be fine." Jace would wake up shaking. Memory returned in flashes. Not all at once. It was a photograph first. A nurse showed him a paper, asking if he recognized the faces. One was Emma, holding baby Luke. Something about the way she held him, protective, soft, jolted something in Jace's chest. Then came the wedding band on his finger. Simple, scratched, worn down by years of wear under combat gloves. He twisted it for hours, trying to remember the moment it was slid onto his hand. Then came the name. His name. He said it aloud one night in the recovery ward, whispering like it might vanish if said too loud. "Jace Keller." A nurse overheard. "You sure?" He nodded. But the fire in his eyes said more than words. He tried calling her. From a borrowed phone. No caller ID. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. Then her voice. "Hello." He didn't speak. "Hello? Who is this?" The line went dead. He threw the phone in the trash. When he finally walked out of the clinic, forged ID in his pocket, scars still healing, leg barely stable, he carried one thing with certainty: someone wanted him dead. Not the Taliban. Not some random IED. Someone who knew his route. Someone who'd fed them his path. Someone close. Jace had spent years hunting ghosts overseas. Now he had to become one. Back in Virginia, Cole sat at the edge of the bed, staring at a framed photo on Emma's dresser. It was the three of them, Emma, Luke, and Cole, smiling on a pier at Ocean View Beach. He held the boy like his own. The sun hit their faces just right. But there was something cold in Cole's eyes. Even in the photo. Emma stepped out of the bathroom in a long t-shirt, hair still damp. "You okay?" she asked. Cole blinked. "Yeah, just tired." Emma paused at the doorframe. Watched him. She noticed it again. That far-off stare. That tension in his jaw. It hadn't always been like this. He used to be calm, reassuring, strong when she fell apart. But lately, he twitched at every knock on the door. He checked the locks twice. He kept his phone face down. "Luke said something weird today," Emma said softly. Cole turned. "He said he saw a man watching the house from the trees." Cole stiffened. "What kind of man?" "He said he was tall, wore a hat, just stood there, not moving." Cole swallowed hard. "It was probably a neighbor," he said. "Or someone walking their dog." Emma didn't look convinced. Neither did he. Jace was watching. Not from the trees. From a construction site 2 blocks away, camouflaged by scaffolding, binoculars steady against the edge of a steel beam. He watched Cole leave at 8:10 a.m. every morning. He watched Emma take Luke to daycare at 8:30. He tracked license plates. Delivery drivers. Routine. He wasn't just guessing anymore. He was building the story they never told him. Then he found the first breadcrumb. A report buried on a military server, accessed through a contact in the Turkish black market. A manifest showing convoy assignments. On the day of the explosion, the route changed. Originally scheduled to travel through Grid 217. Rerouted to Grid 224. Hostile territory, 0 civilian cover. Change approved by one name, Staff Sergeant Cole Ramsey. No reason given. No override. No record of protest. And right below the document, a signature timestamp 3 hours before the convoy left the base. Jay stared at it for a long time. Not angry, not emotional, just processing. This wasn't a love triangle. This wasn't grief turned into comfort. This was a setup. That night, Jace left a manila envelope in the mailbox of a former Army tech he once saved in Fallujah, Marcus Vega. Inside, copies of the route files. Photos of Cole and Emma post-funeral. A note in block print. "I need intel." Quietly. "I'm not dead." JK, 3 days later, Marcus called from an untraceable line. "You really back, brother?" "Yeah." "Then you're not gonna like what I found." Jace waited. "There's a life insurance payout." Emma cashed it. But she wasn't the one who filed it. Who did? Cole Ramsey. Silence. Filed it exactly 10 days after the report said you were MIA. Not Kia. Not confirmed. Mia. Jace's hand curled into a fist. "He didn't even wait for the body," Marcus said. "That bastard filed your death like it was a hotel checkout." Jace whispered, "Thank you," then hung up. Back at home, Emma found Luke playing with an old photo album in the living room. She sat beside him and turned a page. Jace, in uniform, holding Luke right after he was born. Emma touched the edge of the page. And for a second, just 1 second, she swore she saw movement in the reflection of the TV screen across the room. A silhouette at the window. But when she turned, nothing was there. Only rain. And the echo of a memory she couldn't quite hold on to. The motel door clicked shut behind him, and Jace leaned his back against it, exhaling like he hadn't since the explosion. It was happening. The lines were forming. The truth bleeding through cracks no one thought would ever break open. But truth wasn't what haunted him most. It was time. How quickly it moved without him. How easily the world rebuilt itself on top of his grave. Back in the neighborhood, it was trash day. Emma rolled the bin to the curb, slippers scuffing the concrete. Her eyes were tired, not from sleep deprivation, but from carrying weight that never shifted. She caught her reflection in a neighbor's car window and flinched at how different she looked from the girl who once waited at airport gates for Jace in uniform. Cole came out moments later, gym bag over one shoulder, coffee thermos in hand. He kissed her cheek, quick and mechanical. "Meeting runs long today. Don't wait for me." Emma just nodded. She didn't ask where he was really going, because part of her was starting to believe she wouldn't like the answer. Jace followed Cole again. Not to the VA office this time. To a private address outside of town. A 2-story house tucked in the back of a wooded cul-de-sac. Not listed in any public records tied to Cole. Jace watched from the tree lean. Cole knocked once. The door opened. A woman answered. Younger, athletic, sharp eyes. Former Army, maybe. She hugged him like they weren't just friends. Jace clicked his camera once. Another betrayal captured. Back in the motel, he uploaded the photo next to the forged convoy route and insurance documents. His evidence pile was growing, but so was the fire inside him. That night, Emma sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the flag. She reached for the drawer beside the fridge and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside, one of Jace's dog tags. The Army had only returned one. The other, they said, was unrecoverable. She closed her eyes. And then, as if summoned, she heard a knock. Not loud, not urgent, just steady. Tap, tap, tap. She rose, heart suddenly thudding. Looked through the peephole. Nothing. Just the night. Then she opened the door slowly and froze. At her feet lay a box, wrapped in brown paper. No return address. No markings. She crouched down, breath shallow, and opened it. Inside, a photo of her, Cole, and Luke at the wedding. But something was off. A red circle was drawn around her necklace, Jace's grandmother's heirloom. The one she hadn't worn in years, until that day. Below it was a note. You weren't supposed to wear that to someone else's wedding. Her hands went ice cold. She slammed the door, bolted the lock, and backed away, pulse in her throat. Cole wasn't home. No one was around. She wasn't alone. The next morning, Jace sat across from Marcus in a diner off Route 29. Marcus wore civilian clothes now, button-up, buzz-cut, always glancing at the exits. He slid over a manila folder. Internal report. Someone scrubbed it clean. But I found the metadata. The convoy route edit? Guess where it was submitted from? Where? Home. Virginia. Not the base in Afghanistan. Someone spoofed access. Jace clenched his jaw. It was planned. You were the only officer on that route. There's no doubt, Jace. Someone wanted that truck to blow. Jace stared down at the coffee. I should be in a box. You were. Marcus's tone turned hard. And they collected a payday. Later that evening, Cole returned home to find Emma standing at the kitchen table, the box open, the photo laid out. His face drained of color. Where did this come from? He asked. I was hoping you'd tell me, she replied, voice sharp but low. Cole picked up the photo, examined it, then forced a dry laugh. This is a prank. Is it? She held his gaze. He looked away first. Someone's messing with us, Emma. Probably one of those conspiracy nuts who think the military fakes casualties. Emma stepped forward. That's a very specific excuse. He raised his hands. You think I'm lying? I think you're hiding something. He didn't answer. She whispered, did you ever love him? Or was it always you waiting for him to die? A dangerous silence filled the room. Cole turned and walked out. Emma didn't follow. Meanwhile, Jace was already planting the next breadcrumb. He hacked into Cole's VA computer access through Marcus's help and scheduled an appointment under an alias. Civilian identity. Burner phone. Just to get him in a room. Just to look him in the eye again, alive. 2 days later, Cole walked into his office, hung up his coat, and unlocked his computer. There was a sticky note stuck to the screen. No name. No logo. Just 3 words. You buried me. His heart froze. He turned slowly, looking around the room. No one. He went pale. His fingers trembled as he reached for the phone. He didn't realize the security camera was still on, and someone was watching from the feed. Jace leaned back in the motel, eyes locked on Cole's face. For the first time, he saw fear. Not grief. Not regret. Fear. He whispered to himself, "Now we're even. You watch my funeral. I watched your guilt begin." It was supposed to rain that day, and it did. Hard. Not a soft drizzle, not gentle, poetic droplets. It came down like the sky was furious. Thunder cracked like warning shots as Emma stood beneath a white gazebo, bouquet trembling in her hands. She wore ivory, not white. She told herself it was out of respect. But deep down, she knew why. You can't wear white to your second wedding, when the first one never ended. Luke stood beside her in a little bow tie, clutching a ring pillow. Guests sat in folding chairs under a sea of umbrellas, fidgeting, coughing, looking everywhere but at her face. At the edge of the ceremony, a string quartet played music no one was listening to, except for one man. Far in the distance, beyond the fence, behind the trees. Jace. He stood soaked to the bone in the rain, unmoving, unblinking, eyes locked on the altar like a sniper on target. His beard was thicker now. His coat hung loose on his frame. But his eyes, they were exactly the same. And they burned with something too cold to be grief. The officiant spoke. Emma didn't hear half of it. She barely heard her own voice saying, "I do." She barely felt Cole slide the ring onto her finger, a smaller band than the last one. Cheaper. Tighter. She smiled for the cameras. She kissed on cue. But her hand trembled when Cole grabbed it to raise in triumph. It wasn't nerves. It was weight. A weight that never lifted. Jace turned his back to the wedding as soon as the kiss landed. He didn't want to see the applause. He didn't want to hear the cheers. He didn't want to throw up. He limped away through the brush, mud caking the bottom of his boots, fists clenched at his sides. The necklace around Emma's throat still haunted his mind, his grandmother's. He remembered her giving it to Emma on their wedding day, whispering, "Only death parts you. Not war. Not distance. Not pain." He wondered if she wore it today on purpose, or if she even remembered. Later that evening, the reception buzzed with polite chatter and weak smiles. Cole laughed louder than usual. He gripped the whiskey glass like it owed him money. His tie was loosened, his face flushed. He danced with Luke, made a speech, kissed Emma twice in front of her father. But when he stepped away to take a call, he didn't see the envelope in his jacket pocket until he reached for his phone. Unmarked. Inside, a photograph. The wedding. Today's wedding. From behind the trees. Taken through rain. Someone had been watching. He looked up, scanning the crowd like he expected to see a face from the grave. Emma walked up behind him. "Everything okay?" He turned sharply, then forced a grin. "Yeah, just a joke from a buddy." She raised an eyebrow. "You don't have any buddies who would find this funny." He didn't answer. She didn't press. But that night, when they got home, she found him unpacking a locked case from the closet. Inside, a pistol. Full clip. Safety off. She watched from the doorway, silent, then asked quietly, "Why do you need that now?" Cole didn't look up. "Just in case." 3 hours later, Jay sat in a diner on the edge of town, the photograph of Emma in her dress in front of him. He stared at it like he was trying to memorize it, not the beauty, not the smile. The lie beneath it. The way her hand curled around Cole's. The way she looked into his eyes like she once looked into his. The way people smiled while they stood on his grave and built a life. Marcus sat across from him, phone in hand, chewing a toothpick. "I got the call log," Marcus said. "VA's internal system. Cole's had 2 encrypted convos with a private security contractor in the last month." Jace looked up. Marcus continued. "Same company that provides convoy intel. Same company Cole worked for before reactivating his army contract." Jace's lips moved slow. "So he never really left the private world." Marcus nodded. "And he knew where the IED was planted." Jace. "That's the kicker. That route, the one you died on?" His old company had been warned 3 days prior to avoid it. "It's in their threat alert log." Jace sat back. "Let that sink in." "He sent me into a kill zone," he whispered, "and made sure he wasn't anywhere near it." Marcus swallowed. "And now he's sleeping in your house." Jace nodded. Not angry. Not shocked. Just certain. Meanwhile, back home. Emma tucked Luke into bed, pressing her lips to his forehead. His eyes fluttered shut instantly. He was always good about bedtime. A habit he got from Jace, she used to say. She turned off the lamp and stepped into the hallway. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One new message. She hesitated. Opened it. A video. Grainy. Black and white surveillance footage. Cole, 3 weeks after the funeral, kissing a woman outside a hotel. Not her. Not even someone familiar. Emma dropped the phone. It clattered across the floor. Her breathing quickened. She picked it up again and pressed redial, but the number was already disconnected. She didn't sleep that night. She laid awake beside Cole, staring at the ceiling. He snored like nothing was wrong. And outside the house, parked 2 blocks away, Jace sat in silence, watching the light in the master bedroom flicker on, then off. He whispered to the dark, "You're starting to remember." Good. The house was too quiet for a Saturday. Emma stood in the kitchen, staring at the back of Cole's head as he sat hunched over the dining table, reading something with his hand covering his mouth. He hadn't spoken in 20 minutes. The coffee went cold between them. Luke was at his grandparents' for the weekend, which meant no distractions, no toys on the floor, no excuse to pretend things were fine. Emma finally broke the silence. "Where were you that night?" Cole didn't look up. "What night?" "You know which one." "The hotel." "The woman." He set the paper down. Slowly. When he turned, his expression was flat. Cold. "You went through my phone?" "No," she said. "It was sent to me. Video. Anonymous number." He blinked once, but said nothing. Emma folded her arms, voice quieter now. "Was she before me? Or during me?" Cole pushed away from the table and stood. He didn't answer. He didn't apologize. He just said, "Some things you're better off not knowing." That line. It hit her like a slap. She stepped back, heart thudding. What does that mean? He walked out of the room, left her standing in silence, staring at the ring on her finger like it had just turned into a shackle. Elsewhere, across town, Jace pulled a faded storage box from a shelf in Marcus's garage. Inside, a flash drive, half melted from heat. Burnt but still functional. He remembered giving it to Cole a week before the mission. It had encrypted convoy route backups, just in case something happened to their command server. Cole said he'd keep it safe. Jace thought that meant for him. Turns out, he kept it from him. Marcus plugged it into his laptop. Old logs, maps, timestamps loaded on screen. And then, a short audio clip. A recording. They listened together. Jace's voice. "This route's risky. I want Ramsey to review it and cross-check with intel." Then Cole's voice, faint, crackling. "Already did. I'll handle the reroute." Marcus glanced over. He never reported that in the logs. Jace's hands curled into fists. And then a third voice. A man they didn't recognize. Middle Eastern accent. Calm. Chilling. No changes. "Route 224 stays hot." Cole replied, "Roger that." Jace's blood ran cold. He knew what that meant now. Cole had confirmed the route, even after being told it was compromised. He didn't avoid the kill zone. He walked him straight into it. Back at home, Emma pulled the wedding album from the shelf. She hadn't opened it since the ceremony. Every page made her stomach turn. She could feel the smile on her face shrinking with each photo, not because of how Cole looked, but because of how she didn't. She wasn't happy. She was surviving. Then she noticed something in one of the group photos. Behind the wedding party, across the lawn, a silhouette. Distant. Fuzzy. A tall man standing near the trees, alone, head down, drenched in rain. Not a guest. Not someone she remembered seeing. She turned the page fast, suddenly afraid of what else she might find. That night, Cole got a phone call. Unknown number. He answered, walking out onto the porch. The voice on the line was deep, distorted, but not robotic. Just restrained. "You knew that road was hot." Cole stopped breathing. "You filed the insurance. 10 days in. Before my body was found." "You filed it, Cole?" He didn't say anything. "You stole my family, and you sleep in my house. Every day you put on a face like you earned it. But you didn't." Cole hissed into the phone. "Who are you?" Click. Deadline. He stood there in the dark, chest heaving, phone tight in his grip. And for the first time since Jace's funeral, he was sweating. Next day, Marcus brought him the last nail in the coffin. "You're not gonna believe this," Marcus said, dropping a folder on the table. Inside, a legal document. Power of attorney. Signed by Jace a year before deployment. It gave Cole temporary rights in case Jace was incapacitated overseas. But somehow, it was never logged in the Army's main system. Marcus looked up. He used it. Jace stared at the signature. His own handwriting. His own initials. "It was meant for emergencies," he whispered. Marcus nodded. And he turned it into a death certificate. That night, Emma found the necklace. She'd stopped wearing it after the wedding. Something about it felt wrong. Like it knew too much. But tonight, she found it in the drawer tangled in an old pair of headphones. She picked it up slowly. Held it in her palm. It was engraved on the back. A secret only she and Jace knew. "Death can't part what love sealed." She sat down, gripped it in her fist, and for the first time in a long time, cried. Because a piece of her knew what she'd been avoiding. Jace wasn't resting in peace. He was watching, and her guilt was no longer something she could drown. Elsewhere, Jace loaded the burner gun. He stared down at the bullets like they were puzzle pieces, something heavy and final. But this wasn't about pulling the trigger. Not yet. This was about clarity. He whispered to himself, "You had my back, Cole. You held my son. You swore on my life, and then cashed it in." The mailbox rattled. Emma opened the front door, still tying her robe, hair unbrushed, morning haze behind her eyes. She didn't expect mail on a Sunday. Inside the box, no bills, no ads, just a small envelope. No stamp. Hand-delivered. She opened it right there on the porch. Inside, a single Polaroid. Blurry, dusty, but unmistakable. A photo of Jace's convoy, seconds before it exploded. Emma's knees buckled. Because she knew that photo. It was never released. It wasn't in the news. It wasn't in any of the Army files. Only Jace had taken it. She clutched the porch railing to steady herself, staring at the image as if it might dissolve in her hands. The dust was still visible in the air. The men in the photo still alive. One of them waving at the camera, Jace. On the back, someone had written in bold ink. They knew. So did he. Her hands started to shake. Upstairs, Cole was already awake. Shirtless, window shades half drawn, loading a Glock like the walls were closing in. He hadn't slept. The voice on the phone haunted him. Every creak of the floorboards made his pulse spike. He'd called a contact, someone from the old days, someone who specialized in cleanup. They told him no trace of Jace Keller had surfaced in any official records. But ghosts don't need paperwork. They just show up. And they don't knock. Unless they want to be heard. Jace was done hiding. He sat in the front seat of Marcus's pickup, parked just 3 blocks from the house he used to own. He wasn't watching from the shadows now. He was studying them, seeing how quickly Cole came to the window when something startled Emma, tracking how many times Cole checked his sidearm in a day. Noted how Emma started glancing over her shoulder, in the driveway, in the grocery store, at the red light when no cars were behind her. Fear was spreading. Good. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about remembrance. He whispered to himself, low and certain. They need to feel it before I take it away. That evening, Emma waited until Luke was asleep before pulling the flash drive out of her purse. The one that came in the envelope later that day, dropped on her doorstep like a dead bird. She locked the office door and plugged it into her laptop. A single video file blinked on screen. Security footage. Date stamped. 1 week after the funeral. Location. Outside a local motel. Cole. Kissing another woman. Hands on her hips. Smiling. The file ended there. Emma sat frozen. Then the screen flickered again. A second file began autoplaying. Home footage. A video diary. Jace's face appeared, back when his skin was whole, eyes sharp, in uniform. He looked straight into the camera. His voice cracked, but was steady. Emma, if you're seeing this, I didn't make it back. I made Marcus promise to send this if anything ever happened to me. There's so much I want to say, but the biggest thing is, don't trust easily. Not everyone who cries at your funeral loved you while you lived. And if I was betrayed, don't look away. Her mouth trembled. Tears slid down her face without sound. She reached for her phone, then stopped. She couldn't call the cops. What would she say? She couldn't call Cole. Not anymore. So she just sat there, back against the office wall, knees to her chest, and whispered into the empty room. Jace, what did I do? Cole, meanwhile, was spiraling. He drove out to the edge of town, same route Jace used to take to clear his head. Same overlook. Same canyon drop. He sat on the hood of his car, staring at the tree line like he expected someone to emerge from it. A voice echoed in his head. You buried me. He shouted into the dark. You're dead. You're dead. Nothing answered. Not the wind. Not the stars. But when he got back into his car, something was tucked beneath his windshield wiper. Another photograph. A younger version of himself and Jace. Arms around each other at Fort Benning, smiling like brothers. A red circle was drawn around Cole's hand. Inside it, the lighter he still carried today. On the back of the photo, you only smiled when I wasn't looking. Cole's hands shook so violently the photo nearly blew away in the wind. He crushed it into a ball, tossed it out the window, and drove off. But it didn't leave his mind. The next day, Emma made a choice. She drove to the storage unit, Jace's old one. She still had the key. Inside, untouched belongings. His field journals. His medals. A small black box buried beneath gear he never wore again after his last deployment. She opened it. Inside, documents. Maps. USB drives labeled with dates. He'd been preparing for something. Or maybe, preparing for someone to finish what he couldn't. She brought the box home. Hid it in the back of the closet. Later that night, the doorbell rang. Emma opened it, heart in her throat. No one was there. Just a package. Plain. Square. Inside, another photo. But this time not from the past. From today. A snapshot of her and Luke in the grocery store. Taken from behind. She was looking at cereal. Luke was picking out juice. It wasn't threatening, but it was personal. And on the back, written in perfect handwriting, you're still my family. You just forgot. Across town, Jace leaned back in his chair in the motel room. He stared at the final photo he hadn't sent yet. Cole, in uniform, kneeling by a makeshift grave marker in Afghanistan. A single rose stuck in the ground. No name. Jace traced the edge of the image with his thumb, then slowly picked up a lighter. The one from Fort Benning. The same one Cole still carried. He clicked it once. Watched the flame. Whispered, time to burn what's left. The storm rolled in fast, thunder cracking over the rooftops, wind slicing through the trees like razors. Rain pelted the windows with a feverish rhythm, and somewhere inside Emma's chest, something matched it beat for beat. She couldn't sleep. Not after the photo. Not after the voice. Not after the feeling that everything she believed about the last year was beginning to rot at the edges. So she climbed into the attic. Barefoot, flashlight in one hand, heart thudding in her ears. Dust rose like old ghosts from every corner. The insulation crackled under her steps. The smell, dry wood, mildew, and forgotten memory hit her like a wave. She didn't know what she was looking for, but something had changed in her. She wasn't running anymore. A box marked Deployment 3, Hellman, sat near the back, taped shut, corners worn soft. Emma dropped to her knees and opened it. Old uniforms, dog tags, a cracked sat phone, crumpled notes, and buried at the bottom, sealed in black plastic, a USB drive, carefully taped to the inside of a cigarette tin. She pulled it free, holding it like it might explode. And for some reason, she smiled. Back in the motel, Jace watched raindrops chase each other down the window. He'd sent her the grocery store photo knowing it would do more than scare her. It would stir something buried. She was always smarter than Cole gave her credit for. More loyal than he ever deserved. Jace whispered to the glass, I just need her to remember who I was, before he made her forget. Emma plugged the drive into her laptop. Password protected. One she didn't know, or didn't remember. Then she tried something. The date of their wedding. Click. Unlocked. Her breath caught. Inside, audio files, field notes, GPS logs. But one folder stood out. Titled, If I Don't Come Back. She opened the first video. Jace sat on a cot in a dim tent, wearing his combat shirt, face exhausted but alert. His voice came soft, strained. "Emma, I hope to God you never see this. But if you are, then something went sideways. I need you to trust me. If I die out there, it won't be because of the enemy. It'll be because someone let it happen. Cole and we've been at odds over the last few months. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw things. Documents. Changes. Orders rerouted without approval. If I don't come back, he knows more than he'll ever admit. Don't let anyone call it an accident. You know me. I triple-check everything. I don't go down easy." Emma paused the video, hands over her mouth. Her body trembled, not with fear, but with betrayal. He knew. He tried to tell her. And she ignored every gut feeling, every red flag, every moment when she woke up beside Cole and something inside her screamed, "Wrong." She opened another video. Jace again. Dirt on his face. Helicopters in the background. They said Route 217 was compromised. But the file on my desk this morning said we're going through 224. No explanation. Cole signed off on it. Said it was higher clearance. I don't buy it. If this is the last message I send, tell Luke I never stopped loving him. And tell Cole he stopped. Looked away. Jaw clenched. Tell him I'm coming back, one way or another. Meanwhile, Cole was spiraling. He'd torn his office apart looking for anything out of place. His laptop had been hacked, someone accessed his private files. His service pistol was cleaned twice, reloaded 3 times. But no enemy showed up at his door. Not yet. The silence was worse than confrontation. He found himself looking in mirrors, wondering what Jace might look like now. Wondering if he'd recognize him if they passed each other in a crowd. And more importantly, would Emma recognize him too? That night, Emma didn't sleep. She sat with the videos playing on a loop. Each word tore deeper into her, not just because of what Jace revealed, but because of how he said it. Measured. Calm. Not angry, even at Cole. Just certain. And now, so was she. Cole had orchestrated it. He hadn't just moved in on her life after the funeral. He'd cleared the runway before the blast even happened. She picked up her phone and dialed the number from the anonymous message. It didn't ring. It went straight to a voicemail box. But the greeting wasn't automated. It was his voice. Rougher. Deeper. Damaged. But her heart knew. If you got this number, then you already know what this is. Leave a message, if you still can. She stared at the phone, shaking. She wanted to say so much. She almost didn't say anything. Then whispered, "Jace. I remember now. I'm so sorry." Across town, his burner phone buzzed. He saw her number flash on the screen. Didn't answer. Just listened. When the message finished, he sat there in the dark for a long time. Then whispered, "That's all I needed to hear." The next morning, Emma packed a suitcase. She told Luke they were visiting Grandma for a few days. Told Cole she needed air. He asked if she was okay. She smiled, kissed his cheek, and said, "Of course." But as she left the driveway, she slid the flash drive into her purse like a live grenade. And she didn't look back. At the same time, Jay stood in front of the old Army chapel on base, the place where he and Cole once made a promise under oath. No matter what, we cover each other's 6. He stared at the empty pews, the silent altar, then whispered to himself, "That promise died in Hellman." But I didn't. The courthouse smelled like old paper and colder lies. Emma sat in the back row, arms crossed, flash drive in her coat pocket, eyes locked on Cole as he laughed with his attorney near the front bench. It wasn't a criminal trial, not yet, just a routine custody hearing. Cole was filing to formally adopt Luke. On the surface, a formality. In reality, a final erasure. He was rewriting the story. Soldier steps in for his fallen best friend, marries the widow, raises the child as his own. Neat. Patriotic. Unquestioned. But today, the ghost was walking in. 20 minutes into the session, just as Cole began testifying about parental stability, the courtroom doors creaked open. Rain on boots. Came clicking on the tile. A tall man stepped in, limping. Beard thick. Face scarred. Suit pressed, but stiff like it hadn't been worn in years. A deep line crossed from his ear down to his jaw, half faded by time and burned cream. Cole's eyes flicked toward the back and went white. His jaw unhinged, breath caught, body frozen mid-sentence. Emma didn't turn. She didn't need to. She felt him. The man sat quietly in the last row. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't have to, because the name was written all over his face. Captain Jace Keller. Alive. The judge looked confused. Sir, are you here for this case? Jace stood slowly. Not yet, he said calmly. But I will be. Cole bolted upright. Your Honor. The judge raised a hand. Sit down, Mr. Ramsey. Cole sat, sweating through his shirt now. Emma finally looked at Jace. Their eyes locked. Time collapsed. And for one suspended breath in the middle of a government room with buzzing lights and filing cabinets, everything came back. The wedding, the child, the folded flag, the silence. She mouthed one word. How? He shook his head slowly. Not now. Outside, Cole slammed through the double doors like a man escaping flames. He reached the parking lot, fumbling for his keys. But Jace was already leaning against his car, arms crossed, expression neutral. Don't. Cole warned, breath fast. This isn't what you think. Jace tilted his head. You sure? Whatever you think happened. You mean the convoy? Jace asked softly. The one you rerouted to grid 224. Cole's mouth opened. Closed. No backup. No recon. You signed the change yourself. Thought I'd be blown to pieces. But I wasn't. I got lucky. Cole stepped back. Jace followed. You told Emma I died with honor. You wore my watch. Slept in my bed. You called yourself father to my son. You were dead. Cole snapped. You were gone, man. They said there was nothing left. I saw the blast site myself. You saw it. Jace whispered, stepping close. Because you built it. Back at the house, Emma was packing. Not for a weekend. For good. Luke played on the floor, headphones in, watching cartoons. Oblivious. Safe. For now. She tucked the wedding album into a garbage bag and shoved it into the bin outside. Then her phone buzzed. A blocked number. She answered. Jace's voice, low, graveled, but still his, filled her ear. You were right to leave. I'm sorry I let him fool you. But I'm here now. She didn't speak. Her throat wouldn't allow it. Take Luke. Go to your sister's. Stay out of this next part. She choked a whisper. What's the next part? A long pause. Then, justice. Meanwhile, Marcus loaded the last set of documents into a secure Dropbox. GPS tampering logs, edited mission routes, internal whistleblower reports. A falsified insurance claim signed by Cole Ramsey 10 days before Jace was declared Kia. Marcus muttered to himself as he hit upload. Let's see you lie your way out of this, Sergeant. That night, Jace followed Cole to a local bar. Not the loud kind. A backwoods haunt. A place where no one asks names, only pours drinks. Cole sat alone, gulping whiskey like it could turn back time. Jace slid into the booth across from him. Cole didn't flinch this time. He looked beaten already. You don't get to play victim now, Jace said. You don't understand, Cole rasped. No, Jace said coldly. You're right. I don't understand how a man smiles at his best friend's funeral while sleeping in his wife's bed. I don't understand how a brother turns a convoy into a coffin. You were dead, Cole hissed. You think I didn't grieve you? You think I didn't lose sleep every night since? Jace leaned forward. You didn't lose sleep. You lost control. Cole laughed, bitter and small. She was never going to stay with you. Even if you lived. You think she didn't talk to me when you were gone? You think those goodnight texts were all from love? Jace didn't move. Didn't blink. But his hands curled into fists under the table. Cole continued, voice cracking now. You were gone. And she was still here. What was I supposed to do? Wait around and let someone else move in. You could have waited until I was in the ground, Jace whispered. You were. Jace stood up. His shadow swallowed Cole's side of the booth. Voice calm. Final. You think I came back for her? He leaned closer. But I came back for you. The courtroom buzzed louder than usual that morning. It wasn't the adoption hearing anymore. This was different. This was real. A motion had been filed at midnight. Keller versus Ramsey, identity fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. The clerk almost choked when she saw the plaintiff's name. Jace Thomas Keller. Presumed dead. Now in person. He didn't walk in like a ghost this time. He walked in like a soldier. Three-piece suit. Tie clipped tight. The limp still there, unmistakable, but every step was deliberate. Every movement measured. His scarred face was no longer something he hid. It was a weapon. A reminder. A man who shouldn't exist, standing under fluorescent lights with a folder of hard evidence and a name everyone had learned to say in past tense. Jace Keller was no longer just alive. He was here to be heard. Cole sat at the defendant's table, jaw locked, knuckles white. Emma watched from the gallery, Luke at her side, headphones on, drawing airplanes in a coloring book. She hadn't said a word to Cole since the night Jace returned. But her eyes, steady, cold, focused, said more than silence ever could. The judge adjusted his glasses, scanned the room. Mr. Keller, we're all aware of the unusual nature of this case. Yes, Your Honor. You're pressing charges against a man who, until recently, the Department of Defense believed you died serving alongside? Jace's voice came steady. I didn't die, Your Honor, but someone tried to make sure I did. Gasps echoed through the room. Cole's lawyer tried to object. Jace raised a hand. Let me explain. He stepped to the center. Told it all. The altered convoy route. The forged files. The insurance claim, signed by Cole 10 days before the Army declared him deceased. The private military contractor logs. The security footage of Cole kissing another woman after Jace's funeral. The power of attorney Cole used to lock down access to Emma and Luke. And finally, the flash drive. With Jace's pre-deployment messages. The one where he said, if I die out there, it wasn't just combat. When the video played in court, the entire room fell silent. The voice of a man presumed dead filled the chamber with terrifying calm. If this is the last message I send, tell Luke I love him. And tell Cole, I trusted you. That was your last mistake. Cole's lawyer tried everything. Suggested Jace had faked his death. Claimed trauma made him delusional. Blamed the Army for bureaucratic failure. But Jace brought more than words. He brought facts. Hard copies. Witnesses. Forensic analysts. GPS metadata. Military whistleblowers. Every angle locked tight. By the afternoon, the judge's tone had changed. Gravely. We are looking at a potential federal investigation, he said. These are not just marital betrayals. These are charges of conspiracy against an officer, falsification of military records, and exploitation of survivor benefits. Cole sat stone-faced. A crack began to show. Sweat beaded on his temple. His left leg bounced under the table, twitching like a clock winding too tight. When court adjourned for the day, Emma stood alone in the hallway. Jace approached slowly. She turned to him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she whispered, I watched them fold the flag. I know. I held Luke that night and promised you'd be proud of me. Jace's throat tightened. I was never not proud of you. Tears filled her eyes. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around the man she once thought she'd lost to fire and dirt and silence. He didn't cry, but he held her like he was anchoring himself to something real. That night, Cole drove to a motel out on Route 40. Checked in under a fake name. Sat in the dark. The TV buzzed static. The ice bucket sat full, untouched. He knew what was coming. Jail. Dishonor. Everything stripped. He poured a whiskey. Drank it straight. Then turned to the duffel bag on the bed. Opened it. Inside, cash, passport, burner phone, and a .45 caliber pistol. But before he could reach for it, a knock. Not loud. Not frantic. Just steady. He froze. Another knock. He stepped to the door, gun drawn behind his back. Looked through the peephole. Empty. Then a voice, muffled but unmistakable. You gonna run, Cole? Or are you gonna face me like a man? Cole opened the door. Nothing there. Just the photo, the one from Fort Benning. Him and Jace. Smiling. But now, red ink circled something new. The name tag on his chest, underlined 3 times. Stolen valor ends here. Cole dropped the gun and closed the door with trembling hands. The morning news opened with a headline no one expected. Decorated Army Sergeant faces federal charges and fake death cover-up. Cole's face filled the screen, square-jawed, clean-shaven, stoic. A picture once used in military recruitment posters. Now under it, suspect. They ran the footage from the courtroom. Jace's scarred face. Emma's silence. The flash drive testimony. The image of Cole, frozen in his seat like the air had been sucked out of him. America saw a hero fall, but Jace watched a liar unravel. The Army launched its own investigation. What started as a domestic custody dispute ballooned into something darker, a scandal with roots in command files, insurance departments, and silent internal protocols that were never supposed to see daylight. Jace gave them everything. The altered logs, the private contractor payments, the forged signatures, the conversations recorded off encrypted channels, and the nail in the coffin, the original deployment email, time-stamped from Afghanistan, a routing confirmation Jace never received, but Cole did, with attachments that clearly marked Route 224 as high risk. Cole had walked him straight into it, and now the Army knew. Back at the house, Emma packed the last of the boxes. She was leaving for good this time, not because of fear, but because she refused to live in the house built on his death certificate. Luke played in the hallway, unaware, but Emma stopped now and then, watching him, and wondering how much he would remember when he was older. Would he remember Cole? Would he ask about the man who raised him for a year, who he called Dad, only to vanish behind cold bars and louder truths? Would she have to tell him that once she believed a lie so deeply it almost erased the man who told the truth? Across town, Cole sat in an interrogation room. No uniform, just gray sweats. No rank, no flag on his chest. His hands were cuffed to the table, a U.S. Marshal across from him. The conversation wasn't about denial anymore. It was bargaining now. "I can give you names," Cole said, voice dry. "Don't need names," the Marshal replied. "You weren't the first to do it, Ramsey. But you're the first one we caught red-handed." Cole leaned back, laughed once. "A guy dies overseas every other day and nobody blinks. I had a shot to build something. You think they wouldn't have done the same?" The Marshal tapped the file. "Except he didn't die." That shut him up. In a side room, Jace stood with a legal observer and his military liaison. He watched Cole through the glass. "You want to face him?" the liaison asked. Jace didn't answer. He just opened the door and stepped inside. Cole looked up, didn't flinch, didn't sneer. For once, the mask was off. He just looked tired. "You win," he said. Jace stood across the table. This was never about winning. Then what? Revenge? "No," Jace said quietly. "Truth." Cole scoffed. "I gave her a life, man. I kept her from falling apart. I was the one picking up the pieces when you disappeared. You picked them up because you broke them." Jace leaned forward. "I'd rather die in combat than live as what you've become." Cole looked away. For once, no comeback. No excuse. Only the sound of chains as the guards came to take him back to his cell. That evening, Emma and Luke checked into a rental house near Charlottesville. Fresh walls, new furniture, nothing familiar. She tucked Luke into bed, kissed his forehead, and stepped outside onto the porch. Jace was already waiting in the driveway. She walked to him slowly, eyes filled with questions that didn't need to be asked anymore. "I kept thinking you'd be angry," she said. "I was," Jace said. "But not at you." She nodded. "I should have known." He looked away. People only see what they need to when they're drowning. Emma swallowed hard. "I don't expect you to forgive me." "I already have," he said. "But I don't know if I can go back to what we were." She nodded again, slower this time. "I wouldn't ask you to." Silence. Then Jace knelt by the porch swing, opened a small box, and pulled out the folded flag they once gave her. He set it gently at her feet. "This doesn't belong in that house," he said. "It belongs with the truth." She crouched and took it into her arms. This time, when she cried, it wasn't out of grief. It was out of relief. In the final courtroom hearing, the judge read the verdict. Charges upheld. Military court to follow. Federal prosecution pending. Cole's face didn't register a flicker. Not when the words conspiracy and fraud echoed. Not even when they declared he would never wear a uniform again. He was no longer the man who walked proudly behind a casket. He was now the reason it had to be carried. Jace sat on a bench outside, watching the leaves fall in slow spirals. He lit the old Fort Benning lighter, watched the flame dance, then closed it. His war was over now. Not the one fought in sand and smoke, but the one fought in silence, in memory, in betrayal, and he'd made it through both. Scarred, changed, but alive. It was early fall when Jace finally walked Luke to school again. The trees lining the sidewalk had started to blush, yellows and reds and browns spilling down like quiet confetti. Luke skipped ahead with a superhero backpack bouncing on his shoulders, feet crunching through leaves, asking questions faster than Jace could answer. Did you ever ride a tank? Did you shoot bad guys? Did you ever get scared? Jace smiled, soft at the corners. Yeah, buddy, he said. I got scared all the time. Luke stopped at the front gate. He turned back and hugged Jace, tight, like he didn't want to let go. Are you going to be here when I get out? Jace crouched, looked him in the eye. I'm not going anywhere. Luke grinned, then ran off into the schoolyard. And Jace just stood there, watching, not as a ghost, not as a soldier, but as a father, alive, known, real again. Later that day, he drove to the cemetery just outside of Quantico, not to visit a grave, to return something that never belonged where they put it. He carried the folded flag, sharp corners, bright stars, perfectly creased, tucked under his arm like a burden and a badge all at once. The headstone read, SGT Cole Ramsey 1986 to 2025 loved. Honored. Misunderstood. He'd taken a plea deal. No trial. 6 years in federal custody. But on his second month inside, he picked a fight with someone bigger, meaner, and full of rage he couldn't outtalk. The headline said altercation. The report said internal injuries. The death certificate said closed casket. Jace didn't speak. He just set the folded flag down at the base of the stone. Not to honor Cole, but to bury the lie with him. 1 week later, Emma and Jace stood side by side in front of the house they used to call home. Now empty. Listed for sale. She turned to him. What are you going to do now? Jace looked at the yard. The porch. The swing where she once waited for him to come back from war. Then at her. And smiled. I think I'm finally going to live. The final shot lingers, a slow pan upward from the front lawn. The porch light flickers off. Wind rustles the trees overhead. The sound of a car driving away. And on the windowsill inside, a photo. Old, scratched, but still there. Jace, Emma, and baby Luke. Whole. Real. Unbroken. At last. If this story moved you, tell us where you're watching from. City, state, or country, we'd love to know. Leave a comment, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to like the video. And if you want more stories that cut this deep, subscribe. We're just getting started.